when I was in high school, just a few years ago, we were divided in the school. There were the categories of the jocks, okay, and there were the freaks, okay, and those freaks were the ones who were just, disordered, kind of presented themselves as hippies, but they just did other things that you're not supposed to do. Okay? And there was on the horizon, it was just coming out in TV program with the nerds. It's coming out for the Happy Days, so we just began to call some people nerds. And then there were the intellects. Okay, those were very few. Brains. So I've always considered myself a Brock, brain and chocolate. That's an exaggeration. You can ask my friends what they thought of me too. So. But in one moment of the high school, at the end of senior year, we were getting ready for homecoming, okay? And we had a list of these different events that we were going to do during homecoming week. Actually, on Friday before homecoming, we were going to have what would be considered kind of like Olympics. You did these activities, freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, each one selected somebody, and you were going to compete in these different categories. Well, one of the things that they put up was who can do the hula hoop for the longest time. Okay, but we didn't need one boy and one girl, we just needed one. So the list goes up, and we're sitting there, and I'm sitting there with one of the girls because I was the class president. We had to take all these people who had volunteered for this, and all of a sudden a girl comes walking up, and she was from the group of the freaks. Okay? And she's chomping on her gum, long hair in front of her face. She's got these big, huge bell-bottom pants on. She's got this bare midriff stomach showing all over the place. And her eyes were red as you would believe what she was doing before that. And we're sitting there, and she comes up to the table and she says, I want to do the hula hoop. Okay? Well, my friend who was sitting there just looked at her like shocked, like, what would even cross your brains that you could be part of this, okay? And she said, oh, that's already taken. And I looked at her and I said, no, it's not taken. And she said, well, I want to do it. And I said, well, sign your name up. And the girl's looking at me like, what are you doing? And so I remembered Laura Miller was her name. Right? And so Laura Miller left, and this girl just lit into me like, what are you crazy? And I'm like, we're not married. Don't talk to me like that. So the day comes, and we had to give out all these hula hoops. And Laura steps up there and chomping on her gum again, and big bell-bottom pants and big midriff stomach and hair in front of her, and it just starts this hula hoop, and 15 minutes goes by and the freshman drops out. Another 4 or 5 minutes later, and the junior drops out. So it's between the sophomore and the senior. All of a sudden, a little bit of wind started to blow, and it caused the hula hoops to kind of lose their balance. So I yelled at everybody, make a wall, And other ones said, you can't do that. I said, where are the rules? Why can't we? So we're making this wall, and there's 4 of Laura's friends standing there from the tree. And I turned to them and I said, come on, get over here. She's one of you. So they stepped up, and we stopped the wind. She went for an hour and 10 minutes. The freaks were accepted as their people. Now, why do I tell you this story? Jesus mentions this about be careful of the yeast of the Pharisees. These were people who made themselves separate because they wanted to be just better. And it wasn't in the sense of salvation. It was in the sense of discrimination. So when Jesus taught the laws, I know, but I worked as a cook in Rome, there's 2 types of yeast. Okay? There's active yeast, there's dry yeast, okay? Of course, you know the active one is going to immediately kick in. The dry yeast takes a little bit longer, but still kicks in. And Jesus is making reference to bad yeast. Okay? Not yeast that rises, but a yeast that is corrupt, affects negatively. So that's what Christ is reminding us about being good yeast to make a difference, to include instead of exclude. This morning while I was going over meditation and thought, maybe I could talk about even the hairs in your head are counted. Well, as time goes by, there's less hair, so it doesn't take so long to count. I decided I wasn't going to talk about that. But Jesus mentions 3 times in this gospel passage, do not be afraid. And so therefore we have to renew our confidence in God, our trust in God. And we have to believe that He knows through His Son what we are capable of doing as followers of Christ. So let us also reflect Jesus at the beginning. There was such a big crowd, it seems like it was Black Friday because they were trampled underfoot. Can you imagine that? People being stomped on to get close to Christ, to be, related to Christ, to hear Christ. Does that happen in our times? Oh, what is it? I'll tell you this last story. When I was working in El Paso, Texas, we organized this convention, okay? And it was in the arena of El Paso, Texas. And we had invited from Mexico, Eduardo Verástegui, who's a Mexican actor, okay? And so myself and a couple other fathers were sitting in this back room taking our lunch. We stacked confessors so we could eat lunch, and then others ones were stop confessing and change up. So all of a sudden, Eduardo comes walking in, okay? And then this other organizer says, okay, well, we're going to bring in the women. Okay? I don't know what's going on. So all of a sudden, a whole group of women just started coming in. And everybody's like, well, where's Eduardo? Where's Eduardo? Myself and another father were eating. We're like, we're not Eduardo. We're just eating these sandwiches out of a box. And so then there's another priest, legionary priest, who's very well known for his conferences. And he's walking with his notes, and he comes walking in, and he sees the two of us. He says, where's Eduardo? And he looked at the priest like, him too? He said, well, he's in there, so he just goes in there. So we're sitting there finishing, and then Eduardo got done. And so Eduardo, the ladies go running out, and Eduardo comes running, and all the ladies are standing there trying to still touch Eduardo, get their pictures, And then the other priest goes walking by, and all the ladies are just trying to get a picture. Then I go walking out, and all the ladies are standing looking like, who are you? So it doesn't matter what the role that we're playing. It's not that we draw crowds to ourselves. We let Christ draw us. We want to be part of that crowd. We want to be there. That's what the message this morning for all of us. Am I really in my church? Am I really in my faith? Am I really found in Christ? Can Christ count on me? Will He always be able to count on me? We ask our Blessed Mother to help us this morning to help grow in this identity. Who is Christ for me? What is my role as a disciple? What is my mission? In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.